Hello, my name is Donna. Once upon a time, in a quaint little town, I found myself wrapped in a love story that felt like a fairy tale. From the moment I met Mark, everything seemed to fall into place. We met at a local community event, both of us volunteering for a charity drive. It wasn't the most romantic of settings, surrounded by canned goods and donated clothes, but something sparked. "Hey, could you pass me that box?" he had asked, his voice tinged with a polite hesitation. "Sure," I replied, handing over a carton filled with canned soups. "Thanks. I'm Mark." He introduced himself, extending a hand towards me. "Donna." I reciprocated the handshake, feeling an odd tingle. I don't know if it was the twinkle in his eyes or the genuineness of his smile, but something told me this was the beginning of something special. Our friendship blossomed quickly into romance. Within months, we knew we were made for each other. The day he proposed was magical. We were at our favorite spot, a secluded part of the local park we called our sanctuary. Surrounded by the soft glow of the setting sun, he went down on one knee. "Donna, will you marry me?" he had asked, his eyes full of hope and a little fear. My heart was pounding as I looked at him. Then at the modest ring he held up. "Yes," I had exclaimed, my voice breaking yes 1,000 times. Yes! Our wedding planning was hectic, but thrilling. I had always dreamt of a perfect wedding, and Mark was right by my side, making sure it was everything I'd ever wanted. And when the day finally arrived, it was truly magical. The venue was adorned with white roses, the scent filling the air. I felt like a princess in my gown, its intricate lace details like something out of a bridal magazine. But what stood out the most were the vows we exchanged. "I vow to love and cherish you," Mark began, his voice quivering ever so slightly in sickness and in health, "through good times and bad, for as long as we both shall live." "And I vow," I added, feeling the weight of the words, "to be your partner, your lover, and your best friend, from this day until my last." After the ceremony, amidst the applause and confetti, we shared a moment alone. I looked into his eyes, the same eyes that had first met mine amidst boxes of canned goods, and felt a surge of emotion. "We'll be together forever, right?" I had asked, seeking reassurance. "Forever and a day," he had responded, his eyes locked onto mine as if nothing else mattered. And so, I thought we were set for a happily ever after. Little did I know that even the most enchanting fairy tales can turn into grim stories. But for that moment, in that slice of time, I was incredibly blissfully happy. I was in love. I was loved in return. And that was all that mattered. The story of us seemed like it was written in the stars, a celestial masterpiece that defied all logic and reason. Looking back, it's hard to reconcile the Mark of those days with the man who later shattered my world into a million pieces. But this was the beginning, a beautiful one, and for a long time, it was the lifeblood of all my happiest memories. After our magical wedding, Mark and I plunged into the world of marital bliss and the mundane routines that accompany it. We bought a house in a peaceful suburb, miles away from the chaotic bustle of city life. It was a quaint little home, with a white picket fence that seemed almost cliché in its perfection. The front porch had a swing where we often sat on summer evenings, watching the sunset while our hands found each other in a familiar, loving grip. We both had promising careers, he in finance and me in marketing, and our lives seemed to be on an upward trajectory. We worked hard but made sure to set aside time for each other. The weekends were our sanctuary, reserved for long drives, movie nights, or simply lounging around the house, enjoying each other's company. Then came the discussion about children. It happened one evening when we were cozied up on the couch, a romantic comedy playing in the background, largely ignored. "Donna, have you ever thought about having kids?" Mark had asked, his eyes searching mine. "I have," I admitted. "I've always wanted to be a mom. Do you think now's a good time?" His voice had a note of vulnerability, a slight hesitation, as if he was laying a piece of his soul bare. We're stable in our careers, and we've built a life together, I reasoned. I can't see why not. And so, after months of trying, we were elated to find out I was pregnant. The next 9 months were a blur of doctor's appointments, baby showers, and nursery preparations. Finally, we welcomed our first child, Liam, into the world. I'll never forget the look on Mark's face when he held Liam for the first time. It was a mixture of awe, happiness, and a touch of disbelief. "He's perfect," Mark whispered, as if afraid that speaking louder might break the magic of the moment. "He is," I agreed, my eyes filled with tears of joy. "And he's got your eyes." 2 years later, Ava came along, and 2 years after that, Noah. Our family was complete, or so I thought. The kids were growing up in a loving home, and we made it a point to instill in them the values that were close to our hearts: compassion, integrity, and the importance of family. The children brought a new layer of richness to our lives, transforming our home into a lively space filled with laughter, the occasional crying, and an abundance of love. I never knew I could love this much. I remember saying to Mark one evening after we had put the kids to bed, "This, right here, is my whole world." I had looked at him earnestly, expecting the light of mutual sentiment to meet my gaze. "Yeah, it's great," he had responded, but his tone was off, his eyes not meeting mine. At the time, I chalked it up to stress or fatigue. It never occurred to me that it could be a crack in the foundation we had so painstakingly built over the years, but for the most part, life was good. We were a team, tackling parenthood and the challenges that came with it side by side. Each milestone our children achieved felt like a shared victory for us as parents. Whether it was Liam's first soccer goal, Ava's art being displayed at the school fair, or Noah uttering his first words, each moment was a testimony to the life we had built together. As far as the eye could see, our path was clear and bright. We had built a life that, on the surface, was picture perfect. Yet, as I would later come to realize, even the most meticulously constructed facades can hide cracks that eventually widen into unbridgeable chasms. But for the time being, we were soaring high, basking in the joys and challenges of a life we had willingly chosen to build together. It was a regular Wednesday evening. The kids had just finished their dinner, their laughter filling the air as they raced upstairs to get ready for bed. I was clearing the table when Mark walked in through the front door. The moment I looked up and our eyes met, I knew something was wrong. His gaze was unsteady, his footsteps uneven. The smell of alcohol filled the room as he stumbled in, brushing past me without a word. "Mark, are you okay?" I asked cautiously, my eyes narrowing in concern. He snorted, a sound filled with derision and bitterness. "Okay? Why wouldn't I be?" "Mark, you're drunk. What's going on?" The tension in the room was palpable, like a glass just about to shatter. That's when he exploded. "I can't do this anymore, Donna." "Do what?" I stammered, completely bewildered. "This." He waved his arms around wildly, gesturing at the room, at our life, this house, this family, these responsibilities. "You're not making any sense," I said, my voice tinged with disbelief and a growing sense of dread. "I've given up everything for this family, Donna. My dreams, my ambitions. I've lost who I am." His voice was raised now loud enough that I winced, worried the children would hear. "You're saying you regret our family." My voice shook as I spoke, the words lodging themselves in my throat like shards of glass. He paused, looked at me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the man I fell in love with, but it vanished just as quickly. "Yes," he spat out. My heart broke, shattered into a million pieces. "If you're saying you've lost your way because of us, perhaps you never knew your way to begin with," I finally replied, holding back tears. "I can't cheat on you anymore, Donna. I don't love you or the kids. I'm suffocated. I need to find myself without all this baggage. His words were a punch to the gut, each syllable a twist of the knife. He had never been the most expressive man. But this was cruelty I hadn't known he was capable of. In that case, I said, struggling to maintain my composure, I think it's best you find yourself somewhere else. You've clearly already left this family in every way that matters. Fine, he snapped, and without another word he turned and left, slamming the door behind him. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, the air heavy with the weight of what had just happened. And then, breaking the silence, came the soft, timid voice of Ava from the staircase. "Mommy, why was Daddy yelling?" I looked up, my eyes meeting those of my children, confused, scared, and on the brink of tears. In that moment, I realized that while my fairy tale had just been shattered, I couldn't let theirs be destroyed as well. "It's okay, sweetie. Sometimes grown-ups get confused too," I said softly, hugging them close, shielding them from the storm that was about to hit our lives. As they clung to me, I made a silent vow. Whatever it took, I'd protect them from the fallout of this breaking point. For years, we had been building a life together brick by brick, only for Mark to single-handedly tear it all down in a matter of minutes. In that heartbreaking moment, I knew things would never be the same again. But little did he know that while he may have broken our family, he could not break me. As the leader of this household, this was now my ship to steer. And no matter how treacherous the waters, I would navigate us through. This was the end of us, yes, but it was also a new beginning. Mark had chosen his path, and it was time for me to choose mine. The weeks following our separation were a whirlwind of emotional turmoil and logistical nightmares. Lawyers were consulted, papers were filed, and before long, the divorce was finalized. Mark made it clear he wanted nothing to do with us. He didn't fight for custody and barely showed up for the court proceedings. The man I had married, it seemed, was long gone. I moved the kids and myself into a smaller house. It was cozy, lacking the grandeur of our previous home, but it was ours. I set about making it a sanctuary for my children and me, a place where love and trust would fill the void left by Mark's departure. Securing a new job became a priority. With 3 kids to support and no help from Mark, I had to get back into the workforce full-time. I updated my resume, spent nights preparing for interviews, and networked like my life depended on it, because, in a way, it did. My efforts bore fruit when I landed a job at a well-known marketing firm. It was a high-paying position with a lot of responsibilities, but I was up for the challenge. The first day I walked into that office, I felt like a soldier marching into battle, armor on, ready to conquer. My boss, Rachel, seemed impressed from our very first interaction. "Donna, your portfolio is incredible. I see great things for you here," she said, shaking my hand firmly. "Thank you, Rachel. I'm ready to give it my all," I replied, the newfound purpose fueling my enthusiasm. Work became more than a job. It became a platform to reclaim my identity. I was no longer just Mark's estranged wife or the mother of 3. I was Donna, a competent and respected professional. As I excelled in my career, I started to rebuild my emotional life. Though the kids missed their father, they gradually adjusted to the new normal. I was honest with them, appropriate to their age, about why their dad left, but assured them that we would be more than okay, that we were a team and nothing could break us. One evening, while tucking the kids into bed, Noah looked up at me with his big, innocent eyes and asked, "Mommy, are you happy?" I looked at my son, and then at Ava and Liam, who were also listening intently, and it hit me. I was, "Yes, sweetheart, Mommy is happy. I had a job I loved, children who filled my life with joy, and a newfound sense of self that no one could take away from me. I even started dating, cautiously venturing into the world of romantic possibilities. Nothing serious, but it was exhilarating to be admired and desired again, to remember that I was still a woman capable of giving and receiving love. "Mom, you're glowing these days," Ava observed one evening as we sat down for dinner. "I feel like I'm finally coming into my own," I admitted. looking around the table at the faces of my children, and I have the best company to share it with. So life moved on, and we moved with it. Though I knew that we were just at the beginning of this new chapter, the pages ahead seemed promising. The old Donna might have sought revenge, might have wanted Mark to see what he had lost and regret it, but the new Donna realized that the best revenge was not just living well, but thriving, taking the broken pieces and building something beautiful anew. With or without him, my story was far from over, and it was going to be a story of triumph. Mark had become a mere footnote in my life, a lesson rather than a defining chapter. I had a family to raise and a life to live, and I was eager to see where this new chapter would take us. The years passed, and the children grew up strong and resilient, just like their mother. We had built a loving home, and I was thriving in my career. I could comfortably say we were content, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. It was the weekend of my mother's birthday party, and we had all traveled back to the town where I had once lived with Mark. It was surreal. Driving through streets that used to be so familiar, now tinged with the distance of time and experience. As we gathered for the celebration, my family's old house was filled with joyous noise, laughter, conversation, clinking glasses. The kids were having a blast with their grandparents and cousins. My career was in a great place, and in that moment, I felt like I was standing in the sun, a stark contrast to the shadows that had clouded over me years ago. The doorbell rang. Confused, since we were not expecting any more guests, I made my way to the door. When I opened it, my world seemed to freeze. Standing there, clad in tattered clothes, unshaven, and a shadow of the man he once was Mark. "Did you want something?" I asked, my voice nearly failing me. "Donna, it's me," he stammered, his eyes pleading. For a brief second, memories flooded back. Our wedding, our happy years, and then the night he shattered it all. But I quickly snapped back to reality. This man was a stranger to me now. He fell to his knees. "Donna, I'm sorry. I messed up, and I've lost everything." I looked down at the man who had once been my world, the man who had willfully ripped our lives apart, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sorrow, not love. Just an empty space where he used to be. "You want to come back? After you left me and your children without a second thought?" I asked, disbelief coloring my words. I was lost, Donna. I didn't realize how good I had it until it was all gone. Please, can we talk? You were lost. We all get lost, Mark. But some of us don't abandon our families to find ourselves, I retorted, finally feeling the cold reality settle in. No, Donna, you don't understand. I've changed. I want another chance. Changed. You don't get to waltz back into our lives after years and claim you've changed. Our kids have gone years without a father. I've had to be both parents, and I'll be damned if I let you stroll back now that it suits you. As I stood there, looking at the pitiful man before me, I realized that my new life had no room for the ghost of my past. Without another word, I closed the door softly. As I turned around, my children looked at me curiously. Who was that, Mom? Noah asked, puzzled. Just someone who got the wrong door, I said calmly, joining them back at the table. We returned to our celebration, to our life. Mark had made his choices, and I had made mine. He was a chapter I had closed, a lesson I had learned, and a part of my past that had no place in my present or my future. My children and I had a life to live, dreams to chase, and love to give and receive. We had moved on, and that was the sweetest revenge I could have ever asked for. Life went on as it usually does, with each of us focused on our individual journeys. Noah was entering high school. Ava was blossoming into a young artist, and little Liam was proving to be a math wizard. I had also received a significant promotion at work, solidifying my role as a vital part of my company. However, the incident at my mother's birthday party lingered in the back of my mind, serving as a grim reminder that the past can sometimes find you no matter how far you've run. Yet instead of being a disruptive force, the experience somehow brought me closer to a sense of closure I didn't realize I had been seeking. A couple of weeks after the party, I sat down with my kids for an important talk. I felt they were old enough to understand the gravity of what had happened, and I wanted them to hear it from me. "Kids, you remember that stranger at Grandma's party?" I started cautiously, noting their nods. "Well, that was your father." The room fell silent. I could see a storm of emotions crossing their faces. Surprise, confusion, maybe even a tinge of anger. "Why didn't you tell us before?" Ava asked, her voice shaky. "Because I had to figure out what it meant for us. For me," I replied honestly. "It's a complicated feeling to see someone who was a big part of your life reduced to a stranger. But it taught me something important." "What's that?" Noah asked. "That life goes on, whether we like it or not. And sometimes the best way to move forward is to fully let go of what's holding you back." The conversation was a tough one, but it was also cathartic. My children understood, and for the first time, it felt like we were entirely on the same page, united in our journey ahead. Around that time, I also started going to therapy. I recognized that healing is an ongoing process and talking to a professional could offer additional perspectives. So how did it feel seeing him after all these years? My therapist, Dr. Alan, asked during one of our sessions, "Empowering, actually." I said, surprising even myself with my clarity. I looked into his eyes and realized he has no hold on me, no power to disrupt this life I've built. That's a significant realization, Donna. It sounds like you've reached a form of closure. Yes, I believe I have. That chapter of my life was officially closed, sealed off like an old book gathering dust on a forgotten shelf. I found that closure doesn't always come in the form you expect. It doesn't require confrontations or grand gestures. Sometimes, closure is a quiet acceptance that the past has no claim on your